Welcome to Caregiving 911, and this is a seminar for someone who might be a new caregiver or you've been a caregiver for a while and you just need some tips. So the first thing I want to talk about is relationship. Your relationship with your care receiver is obviously very important. When you go in to see your care receiver, it's very important to spend quality time. You think if you go in and you've got a mental list going in your head of, I need to be doing this, or I have been doing this, or I should be doing this, you think your care receiver will notice? Oh yeah, they know if our minds and our bodies are, not just our bodies, but our whole being is present with them. I heard someone say one time who was an administrator of a facility, it's better to spend 10 quality minutes with someone and they know you're really with them than it is to spend an hour just to have a quantity of time. So it's good to keep that in mind. Be present with your care receiver. Respect your loved one's privacy. When they're in a facility, they have usually come from a house full of possessions, and they either have a room or a half a room. And that's a lot of space lost. It's a lot of independence lost. So it's still important to respect and honor the space that they have. They maybe be pared down to their bare minimum, the clothing, the toiletries, the little knickknacks that are special to them, the pictures. But it's so important to respect that space and those possessions. Focus on the visit. When you go see the person that is your loved one, make sure you try to facilitate a good visit. If the TV's blaring, they're not going to be able to hear you. So just say, would it be okay if I turn off the TV or turn it down a little bit? Make sure they can see you. If they're bedridden, make sure that they're positioned well so that they won't have to strain to see you. There can be a whole conversation that takes place with good eye contact. Even if somebody has maybe had a stroke and they can't communicate, or there's dementia or confusion involved, you can still, with good eye contact and touch, have a great visit with that person. Be sure to address your loved one. It's real easy sometimes if you go in a facility and there's a nurse in the room, or there's a tech in the room, or another family member, and the whole conversation takes place among all the people except the person you came to see. That makes that person feel not so important, doesn't it? So you want to focus on your care receiver, your loved one, the person that you came to see, not all the other people that you can talk to later. Focus on the positive. Now sometimes that takes an effort. Sometimes you might have a loved one that maybe tends to be a little more negative, but work at focusing on the positive. You can always find something positive to talk about. And probably the biggest thing to remember is don't take yourself or your loved one too seriously. Learn to laugh about some stuff. Learn to just take things not quite so seriously, because it can make a difference. When we talk about the reality of the situation, we do not want to try to change our loved one. Well, we might want to try to, but how will they receive that? Do we like it when anybody tries to change us? No. That brings resistance, doesn't it? So if we go in and we have this mission of, I'm going to change my loved one, then it won't work, will it? So we need to accept our loved one for how they are and who they are. We need to be tolerant. Now this is going to be a big sentence here, so stay with me. Be tolerant, non-judgmental, and forgiving. Now, that's a tall order for anybody, but it's also very, very hard if you're trying to be tolerant of somebody who drives you crazy. It's like you walk in and it's like, okay, it takes a lot of effort, doesn't it? It's hard to be non-judgmental of someone and you're just poles apart in everything you believe. Or even harder would be to be forgiving of someone who maybe abandoned you or abused you and now you're their caregiver. So it takes a lot of taking steps on your part to work through some of that stuff to be able to do that for your care receiver. After you do all that, which that's essentially the hard part, I would say, is you do what would cause your loved one to have peace of mind. If they have topics they keep bringing up, for instance, it might be money. Do I have enough money? It might be medicine. I don't think they're giving me the right medicine here. I need you to check into that. You need to do what would cause them to have security, feel safe, and have peace of mind. And a key for a caregiver, as well as a care receiver, but especially for a caregiver, is to accept the circumstances as they are. Acceptance of anything is a real key, isn't it? And it's like, okay, this is where I am, this is what I deal with, and this is how I can make a plan to deal with it after I accept and don't resist what's going on. Okay, also the next part we want to talk about is role reversal. And obviously, there is a role reversal, isn't there? Somebody said, well, am I the parent now? Well, actually, we'll never be the parent. We'll always be 10 years old in their eyes, and they'll always be the parent. But the responsibility is different, isn't it? So what you need to be aware of is that this role reversal magnifies the existing relationship. If that relationship was good, that's probably going to be pretty good. If that relationship was hard, it's probably not going to get any easier, is it? It's just know it will magnify the existing relationship. Also, it will cause unresolved issues to surface. You know, you'll just be going about doing your daily chores for your care receiver, and all of a sudden something will just trigger a thing in you that you think, man, I hadn't thought about that since childhood. Be aware that that will happen, and just know that's part of what you have to deal with. But an important thing is, don't try to make your care receiver too dependent on you too soon. Don't make this role reversal happen prematurely, because you want them to do for themselves what they can as long as they can. Because if not, then you're just asking for more and more things to happen that you have to take care of before you really need to.
How do you do that? How do you keep from making your care receiver too dependent on you? How do you know what's too much, what's not enough? How much care do I give them? How much do they really need? You know, you have a tendency, some people do, to frantically and desperately attempt to provide for every possible need your loved one has. You don't want them to struggle with anything. You don't want them to want anything that they don't have. And really the expectation is, if they're going to be happy, it's going to be up to the caregiver to make them happy. So if they're unhappy, you better do whatever they want so that they will be happy. If you have that mindset, you're probably doing too much, because your tendency is to think, let's just keep them from any struggle at all. But know that the dignity is in the struggle. If you take away all struggle, you've also robbed your care receiver of dignity. Do you just keep exerting increased dependence on your loved one? For example, you want your loved one to go to dinner and they use a walker. Well, it's going to take them maybe 10 minutes to get down the hall. If you put them in a wheelchair and roll them, it'll only take 2. But you know what? They need that independence of walking there themselves, getting themselves there. What they can do for themselves, what your care receiver can do for himself or herself, let them do. Don't do for them what they can do. You do only what you need to do, and do it as pleasantly as you can. And then if you abandoned yourself, your own needs, for the needs of your loved one, do you make sure they have enough food, but you never quite have time to eat yourself? Do you just keep checking on them over and over again? Are you spending hours and hours and hours with them, maybe even while they're sleeping or they're visiting with someone else, when you're not getting any exercise, you're not socializing, you are ignoring your own needs for their needs? You're probably doing too much. The scale is tipping in that direction. On the other hand, do you have a tendency not to do enough? Are you irritated with their needs? Are you angry because of maybe the treatment you received as a child or early adulthood? And so you kind of withhold some of that care. Do you get angry with them easily? Kind of tend to be a little cold and unsupportive, whether you say it or it's just your body language. Is your caregiving just a job that you've got to perform? You know, I figure for the next so many years, this is just what I'm going to have to do. You may tend to not be doing enough then. Are you regularly focused on changing your loved one's behavior? If I just hammer it home enough, he'll think about something else. He'll quit doing this. I don't want him to do this. I don't want him to do that. And so you keep manipulating behavior to try to get that behavior that you want, the desired behavior. Then the scales may be tipping toward not enough. You're not doing enough. You want balanced caregiving. You want to do enough, but not too much. And then what about yourself? Relief. Who takes care of you? Caregiving is a very, very hard job. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, it is very hard. And we sometimes think, well, it's just selfish if I think about myself. You know, if I try to get exercise or I try to go out with friends, I'm leaving mom or dad with somebody they don't want to be with. They're saying, where are you? I'm lonely. You need to be here. And so you just ignore your own needs and try to make them happy. Keep filling in whatever it is they want, which is most often your presence, but it could be other things as well. It is not selfish to take care of yourself. We have heard story after story of elderly caregivers caring for their spouse, and the caregiver's health will deteriorate much faster than the care receiver because they have just abandoned their own needs. They're not caring for themselves. You have to take care of yourself. You cannot be the best caregiver you can be if you don't take care of yourself. You've got to recognize your limits. How much can you do? You know, for some people, 30 minutes a day of conversation with their care receiver is really all they can do. But know what you can do. Where does it cross the line and you start becoming angry and frustrated and irritated? And back that up. See where your limit is. Recognize your limits. Communicate, not just with your care receiver, but you've got to communicate with other people, other members of the family, siblings, friends, what your needs are. I'm really having a hard time with this. Help me think of another way I can do this. Help me think of another way to prepare the meals, another way to do the taking care of them physically or taking care of other needs they may have, because this isn't working for me. So get some help, communicate. If you do not communicate, what we do, we all do this. We don't communicate because we think my brother or my sister should just see the situation I'm in and they should say, let me help you with that. And then our feelings get hurt when that doesn't happen. And then we've put up a wall, not only with our care receiver, but with the people who would be our support system. You've got to communicate. People cannot read your mind, and it's too much to expect them to. You're creating a situation that will be very difficult to overcome. So you must talk to those people who can help you. We've got to exercise, rest, eat, interact with your friends. Those things are very important to stay physically healthy yourself. And laugh. Look for the humor. You know, sometimes an elderly person will do things that kind of reminds me of my granddaughter when she was 2 or 3. They're just funny. And you need to understand that it's okay to see the humor in those situations. enjoy what there is to enjoy. It's hard, and laughing and the humor can really lighten it up and make your load easier. Socialize. Go out to eat with your friends. Go walking with your friends. Maintain friendships is probably the main thing we're saying here. You want to devote all your time to your care receiver, maybe your immediate family, but your circle of friends gets narrower and narrower. You need that social contact that will help you. The context of friends and social interaction provides the stimulus and the conversation that will help you have the perspective that you need to keep going. Do not ignore available support. So often we just think we're the only ones that can do it. We got meals, we got clothes, we got laundry, we've got housekeeping, there's no one else. That is almost never the case. There are community resources that you probably don't even know are out there. Pursue those. Look at in your area agency on aging website, look at your senior services directory for your area. What's in your community? There are so many options, and you can use those. Take advantage of those things. It will help your loved one to have interaction with some more people, and it will give you some time as well. Seek help from family and friends. Again, communicate. Let them know what you're needing, how you're doing. And then we really encourage you to participate in a support group. There are a lot of other caregivers in your area, wherever you are. And to be able to come together and talk about the successes and the failures, the struggles and the achievements that you have made with your care receiver helps everyone. You know that you're not alone, you have people to interact with, and the support that comes out of that is just amazing. And so we encourage you to find a support group. Start a support group. If there's not one already happening in your area, start one. And there'll be a support group handout that will kind of give you directions on how to do that. But whatever you do, know that your role as a caregiver is very important. And how you respect your care receiver will mirror in so many ways how you respect yourself. Take care of yourself.